everyone. I'm Jule Selbo, and I'm so excited to be at Osterville Village Library, the most beautiful library I've ever been in. And I thank them for inviting me and my friend Nicole Asselin. We're both writers, and so we wanted to talk about our books and writing. And so what I think what we're going to do is we'll just kind of give each other's, we'll talk about our backgrounds, and then we'll talk about our books and see where it goes from there. So it's like I said, I'm Jule Selbo. I was a screenwriter in Hollywood for over a couple of decades, and then moved to Maine, Portland, Maine, to be a novelist. And so my passion right now is books, writing books. And I realized this morning that when I was getting my books together, that I've written 5 books in the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
The first one was when I was working in Hollywood, and then I was asked to do to teach in Florence, Italy. So I was out of Hollywood, not working at the studios, and I decided I wanted to fulfill my lifelong passion of being a writer. So I wrote this book, Find Me in Florence, which I wrote at a cafes in Florence, Italy. It's about this woman who's searching for the past, to find out about her mother's past. Her mother was a mud angel in Florence, Italy, in 1966 when the Arno River flooded, and people came from all over the world to dig into the muck and the mud and come up with the artifacts, art, books.
Wow.
So many things were lost in Florence, and they're still being found, and there's an art hospital there too. But the mud angels were very helpful in helping to retain Florence's artwork. And so she goes to Florence, her life is falling apart, and she finds out about her mother's past. And it's a travel, well, it's a mystery romance. And I just really loved writing it. So I was still in my Italy times. I wrote a book about Laura Bassi. She's one of the earliest experimental physicists in 1700s in Bologna, Italy. And she went through all these troubles to even get an education, because girls girls just couldn't get an education. But her father was very, very helpful. And she ended up teaching Galvani and Volta, getting her PhD. It's an extraordinary story. And when I was writing it, there was not that much information about Laura Bassi. I was hired to write the book by someone who wanted to bring out some of these Italians who haven't been really explored that much. And so I had to do research from all over different ways, kind of coming in from Galvani and Volta and Voltaire and the men at that time, in order to find just a little bit about Laura Bassi. But now I see her name a lot. I'd like to think it was my book, but we'll see. I also wrote a book about John Cabot, who started out as Giovanni Gabato in Genoa. He grew up where Columbus grew up. I have them crossing paths. This is historical fiction, but they were both in Genoa as young kids together. And as Columbus went south and did, the southern area of the United States, or of the Americas, John Cabot he changed his name from Giovanni Cabato to John Cabot, so that he could get the King of England, Henry VII, to be his patron, and so he could sail for England. But this is where Nicole and my lives intersect, because we're both mystery writers, and it was always my goal to write a mystery series. So I'm on the 3rd book of my mystery series. 2 have been published. 10 Days came out last year around this time. Takes place in Portland, Maine. It's a detective, female detective, who, as one of the reviewers says, takes on the underbelly of Portland, Maine. And so I'm loving writing this series. And 9 Days, the 2nd book in the series, just came out 2 weeks ago. So that's me. And now, Nicole, tell us about your books.
Oh, geez. Okay. I was unprepared, but I'm ready. I should always be on. So I apologize for no makeup. This is my work from home look today. So as Jule said, we fortuitously met through our publisher, Panda Moon Publishing. They had these classes for their new authors. And so we met through that. Oh, hey, we're both from New England. That's really cool. You're from Maine. I'm from Massachusetts. Awesome. And then it turned out we got to meet. There's a writers conference in New England every November, the New England Crime Bake. And we kind of just met up at one of those. And it was super cool. We got to like meet each other in person, which we never thought we would. So now we're Crime Bake buddies. So when I joined Panda Moon, it was with my first cozy mystery, Murder at First Pitch. As you can see, I have my covers behind me because I'm very vain. And it's a cozy mystery, which means it's not super, it doesn't explore any dark sides really, other than there's a murder. I like to liken it to a Hallmark murder mystery. So it's, you know what you're gonna get. There's a little murder, a little light kidnapping, a little smooching, and it follows Madeline as she goes home to her baseball league, independent baseball league, family-owned team, and stumbles on a dead body. And that came out right before the pandemic hit. So I had a good 6 months of getting out there and showing it to people before everything went to Zoom. And then of course,
it's so much fun. It's such a great series. The
baseball season was canceled because of COVID. So that kind of screwed up my marketing, but that's okay. That's all right. And then the second one, Concession Stand Crimes, also still following Madeline, came out in June of this year. And of course, the Red Sox decided they weren't going to play really good baseball this year. And so that's another lost marketing day for me. But again, she's, working her new job at the ballpark, and there comes another dead body, and she inserts herself, as in all cozy mysteries, and in honor of the late Angela Lansbury, very Murder, She Wrote, cozy feel. And I'm in the midst of writing the third one right now, but we'll see when that one will come out, hopefully in the next year. But yeah, so I'm I lean more towards the cozy side, where Jule's a little bit more darker than me, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and everyone loves her, I'd like to read both. I'd like to read kind of hard-hitting stuff. I think mine, I kind of would say it's in the more Sue Grafton style, where the crimes are they affect the city and the people around her in a very serious way, and Nicole's do too, but there's a little bit lighter. More of a lighter tone to it. So Nicole, when you sit down to come up with your plots, do you try to keep it happening on the ballpark, in the ballpark?
For me, the ballpark is probably how Portland is for you. It's kind of the third main characters, because it is, I as a baseball fan, I wanted to it be its own entity. So with the first two, obviously it's the town I live in. We don't have a ballpark for real, but I wanted to kind of make it feel real. And so that if I ever win my millions of dollars in the lottery, I can maybe create a ballpark here. And people seem to enjoy that. And the third book, I am moving Madeline away from the Abington ballpark to a ballpark in Pennsylvania, because I don't want a Cabot Cove situation. I don't want people to keep dying in Abington, because I like my town and I want them to like me, and I don't want to murder everybody. But the ballpark is a character in and of itself. Like, you kind of feel like you want it to be at home. And you use a real place too. Portland is obviously a real place. And how do you get kind of into that seedy underbelly to write about?
Yeah, Portland is a beautiful city. It's known for its water, the sailing, there was a shipping area for a long time, manufacturing area. And so it has a very strong wharf feeling, but those wharfs now have become $1 million condos and everything. So I'm trying to give a whole impression of Portland. There's the West End, which is very, very kind of upper crust, looks like upper crust Boston. And then the Munjoy Hill area where I live, which was, there are more wood frame houses, and the Irish, and the Italians lived up there, and it was kind of rough and tumble, but now it's also very gentrified. And so Portland is expanding. But economically, there's all different levels, and it is a town of about 100,000. So there's plenty of room. Sometimes, like, because it's so pretty and the food scene is amazing, there's gorgeous, stores, and there's tourists come in and the cruise ships come in. People go, well, this looks so nice and safe. And all you have to do is open the newspaper and go, yeah, it's not like Los Angeles, where I used to live, or some of the other big cities, but there's certain areas that can be a little tougher. And there's people who are always out to do something bad.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of it's this picture perfect postcard, but if you just open it and look a little deeper, there's darkness there, because that's real life. And I think that makes the books even better, because you're like, oh, Portland, oh, it's so nice, vacation, let's go on a cruise. And then there's like crime, which there is everywhere, obviously, but in a heightened sense, I guess.
Yeah, and people, have big dreams, and people get in their way. So there's always something to look at. And Dee Rommel, my main character, she used to be a cop, and during one of the on job, she got injured, and so she's been in rehab. She's trying to get her life together. She's trying to get her physicality back together. And in the meantime, she's working for her godfather, who's a private investigator in Portland. And he needs her. He's getting a little older. He wants her to take over his business. So she really has a dilemma. Well, her dream was to be a detective, and now she's helping her godfather. So there's always that push and pull too, because she knows that the police get to know a little bit more than she does. So she has to use her wiles to figure out and get information. So that's a lot of fun for me.
Do you find this, you fascinate me, because you do write these mysteries that are great, but then you have that nonfiction, Italian masters, how do you find it hard to switch between the two, that research side to the fiction side, or it's just you have such a wide breadth of work that it's kind of awesome?
Yeah. Well, I guess it really comes down to the fact that I love to do research, because even in the Dee Rommel books, we have to keep holding them up, because
they're right behind me,
because we don't have them. Yeah. But even in the Dee Rommel books, there's, I had to learn, despite the fact that I live in Portland now, I'm relatively new to Portland. So all the research in Portland, research into what's legal, what the cops can do, what the private investigators can do. Right now in 8 days, which I'm working on, Dee Rommel is, she's getting ready to take her private investigator's license.
Ooh.
So, and you have to
take one. Did you take a test?
I will.
For research?
But the thing is it's not like you can just hang up a shingle anymore.
Right.
If you really want to, be taken seriously. So you have to, and the state has to okay you and fingerprint you and check your background. And so there's so much research. And in 9 days, the one that just came out, the person, it goes around this crime, a murder that takes place in the West End of Portland, which is the very ritzy end. And a gardener is shot in the backyard, and the very wealthy woman who's like 6th generation Portland says that she did it, and she's a famous astrologer. And her son, an almost 12-year-old young boy, Czar, hires Dee and Gordy to find out he said, my mom didn't do it. And they go, well, she said she did. He goes, she didn't do it. I want you to find out who really did it. Ooh. Dee and Gordy have to find out who did it, why she's taking responsibility. Plus, I had to research all this astrology stuff. And this astrology is a small part of the story, but I had to make sure. And it does leave some clues. So yeah, I guess, Nicole, for me, I just like to do research. And when I worked in Hollywood on a show with George Lucas, everyone knows he's Star Wars and everything, but One of his movies in Indiana Jones series of movies, he did a television series of, and I worked on that television series for 4 years with him. And it was all about research, because he wanted everything to be as historically correct as possible, except for the insertion of this made up imaginary character, Indiana Jones. So I think that was probably my favorite job.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I love me some Indiana Jones. So that's good to know. That's good to know. Because yeah, you're going to have that. I mean, you want to make sure it's believable to the reader while also maintaining that, what do they call it?
Entertainment value.
Yeah, exactly. Or you kind of have to, what is it? Suspension of belief, where you're trying to, I know this is fiction, but like that, and that's the hard part with a real location. Like I used my real hometown of Abington, even though there's no ballpark, but people ask me, they're like, where would you put the ballpark? Where would you do this? And, I know that part of town. I know this, that, and the other. And you really don't want to get into a fight with somebody. And, they're like, that's wrong. That's wrong. And you're like, but I researched so hard. So I think even in fiction, that makes sense that you have to do that layer of quality checking just to make sure you don't get those letters.
And do you ever get into a position where you go, okay, enough research, now I just have to write it, because otherwise I could research the rest of my life?
Well, yeah, that's a lot of writers say that. Luckily, this is going to sound so like, I don't do a ton of research because I use a lot of what I know, which is I know baseball. So a lot of the baseball stuff I just pick up on my own. In the third book I'm writing now, tentatively titled Foul Play, there's a whole section on robot umpires, because that's the new thing that's coming out. And I have fallen into probably a 3-hour hole of reading about why it's good, why it's bad, what it is, how they do it, yada, yada, yada. But then like you said, you got to get to a point. I'm not going to write a full chapter of robot umpires. It's probably going to end up 2 paragraphs of this is how it works. Yeah. That's it. But you've now read a million articles about it. So it's if we ever go on Jeopardy, it's good. Good to have
some things.
But yeah, in the book, when you see an author with a stack of research books, know that's probably only going to end up as 1 paragraph in the actual book, unless it's nonfiction, obviously.
So now I'm interested in robot empires. Are they actually going to be like people or just cameras?
So it's cameras, and it's like it's over. Not you don't see it, but it's going to be, and then they have a real umpire in the booth. So it's kind of like, for those that live in New England, as people do in Osterville and stuff, it's like the Amica pitch zone on Nesson. So they'll have the box, and the umpire will see it up top, and, oh, that's a strike. Oh, that's a ball. And it's supposed to eliminate some of the human error. And they're using it in Atlantic League baseball games, like really low minor league games, low minors.
Is that to see if it works out?
Yeah, to see if they're gonna do it in the pros. So, but they just switched to the instead of using signs, now they use PitchCom, which is a little thing on your wrist, and the catcher just types in some codes and it goes right to the pitcher, and now there's no more signs. Well, some teams still use them, but that's a whole nother research.
Is that for like, okay, so now no one can steal our sign?
Exactly. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I love professional tennis too, and you used to have the fights with the refs of
right, John McEnroe, yep.
And then it was for a while when it started out, it was called the Mac Cam, because he was the one who throw so many fits, and yeah, it's probably, I think everyone calms down a little bit more. Yeah, it's not as exciting.
No, it's a little more boring, but I guess if you're getting paid millions of dollars, you want things to be accurate. I don't know, but it's fun to kind of insert some of that stuff in, to see, just to kind of get a lay of the land, see what's happening, and all that kind of fun stuff. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, when Osterville Village Library and I talked about doing this, we were talking about the actual writing. And I get up very early in the morning and work longhand on pages that I've already done. And then I put them into the computer, and then I work on the computer for a while. And then at the end of the day, I usually go to my favorite wine bar, and before it gets crowded, and I sit in a corner and they know me and everything, and then I work hand again. So I put in like a big chunk of hours during the day, longhand and on the computer.
Wow.
How do you work, Nicole?
Not every day. So I am unfortunately beholden to the man. So I have a day job where, well, technically I write, but it's for healthcare companies. It's not for my fun. My writing usually is exclusively on the weekends. The pandemic, it was hard because I find getting out of my house is better for my writing. So like I'll go to Starbucks or the Barnes and Noble Starbucks or Panera and sit, and I always give myself a little, 500 to 1,000 words. That's fine, Nicole. That'll get you through the day. Or I go to the library, or I try to find a new library. Like a couple weeks ago, I went to the Quincy, what's it called? The Turner Library. Quincy Thomas Crane Library. And it was this gorgeous old library with the stained glass windows. And I hit 1,000 words, no problem, because you just kind of feel the essence of writing, and there's no TV to distract me, or there's no internet. So it's not like I'm on Twitter 1,000 times. I do use software. I use readsy.com, their software to write the book, because I can get it anywhere. I don't have to send myself copies depending on the computer I'm using. Because
what is the name of it again?
It's Readsy, REEDSY. They're kind of like, it's sort of like Scrivener, but really toned down. And they're also a marketplace for like freelance editors and freelance writers and ghostwriters and all that stuff. So they kind of have a little bit of everything. Because I'm not going to, I hope none of my coworkers are listening to this in the middle of the workday like I am. We don't get Google Docs on our work computers, and I'm on my work computer pretty much, 60 hours a week. So I like to be able to open it up like during lunch and maybe write a few words if I can, if I feel inspired. So for me, it's a lot harder. And then dealing with like family stuff and kind of trying to fit in. And I always tell people, sometimes people say you have to write every day. You have to write every day to be a writer. And I don't subscribe to that. I say, write when you want to write and you're a writer. If you can't write like on a Wednesday afternoon, I don't think you should punish yourself for not writing. I know a lot of writers are like, oh my God, I'm so lazy. I didn't do it today. I didn't do this. Life happens, guys. Like, write when you can and write when you want to, because otherwise it's going to become a chore if you don't like doing it how you like to do it. Like, you like to do the longhand and then switch to the computer and then go drink a glass of wine and see if the words make sense afterwards. Like, once you find what works for you, that's going to be the real way to write, I think. At least that's what I'm finding. So so some people use Scrivener, which is a writing program that kind of, sometimes they can give you prompts as to what should happen next or what to write, or I've actually used it myself. Me neither. I tried it. I downloaded it once and it was confusing to me, and I didn't feel like trying to sit and learn it. So I was like, you know what? I was using Google Docs for a long time, but that's blocked on my work computer. So I had to find a free software because I didn't want to keep sending myself Word documents. As a technical writer, I know that's how you get drafts that are not in order.
Right. Yeah.
It does break it up by chapter, so you can, move chapters around. And because that's kind of what I'm finding now is I'll want to write like a specific scene, but it doesn't fit where I'm a pantser. So I do not have an outline. I don't have it anywhere. So it's really just seat of my pants writing. And so this way you can kind of move things around to see if they fit somewhere else, and you don't feel as like crazy about it.
So those terms, pantser and outliner, when we go to our writing conferences, it's usually about 50-50. People who just don't plan, they just sit down and write and let the book evolve. And then the people who outline. And a lot of mystery writers, sometimes they have to outline a little bit more to keep track of the clues and who's doing what. And also if you're doing a book series, like it's in 9 days, because I'm going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
That was going to be my question. So do you know what one day is going to be like? Do you know the end game for the last book?
I know where it's going to take place.
Okay.
Oh, anything
Yeah.
else? At the point it's like right now my whole brain is trying to make sure that it doesn't get too complicated, that it's that because I'm as interested in character arc as I am mystery plot. And so what I'm excited about for this series for Dee Rommel is that I know her arc 10 days down to 1 day. I know where I hope that she'll end. Now, sometimes characters surprise you.
Sure.
I have that plan, but I don't have, because each book can also be a standalone. You don't have to read them because I catch you up, but also each crime plot per book has a beginning, middle, and end.
Sure. Do you find that
character?
Do you find that's from your screenwriting days, like self-contained mysteries?
Maybe.
Self-contained? I don't know, because I know there's what do they call them? Bottle episodes, where it's just everything's in one, so you don't have to, other than the character.
The standalone. And when I started in Hollywood, the networks would always want us to do standalone because they thought, well, people don't watch them in order. But now the whole way people watch TV is different. They want that long character arc. They want 9 seasons, 7 seasons, 6 seasons, and it's 22 episodes a season. So, and usually, sometimes now they're shorter, but I worked on, Indiana Jones, he had an arc, but it was pretty much standalone episodes. I wrote the one where he and his mother are in Italy. I don't know why. I mean, Selbo is Norwegian. But
You're
anyway,
very Italian.
But Italy has been in my life.
Yeah.
But Puccini falls in love with his mother and her to leave Indiana Jones's dad. So that was a standalone episode. She ended up not leaving his father, but the character grew throughout the series.
Yeah.
But I also worked at Melrose Place, which was really a soap opera-esque kind of serial.
Oh, so I know Melrose Place. I know Melrose, girl. That was one of my shows. Now I did not know this.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
We had to do we had to sell the network on the year long for each of the characters. So we knew where we wanted to be. Sometimes each episode could have its own little quirky little within it, but we knew where the characters had to be. So yeah, I guess that's probably where I got some ability to do this and decide to do it. So.
And where did that idea come from to start at 10 days and go down? Did the character come first, or did the idea for the countdown?
No, I didn't know when I started 10 days that it was going to be a countdown. And
that's awesome.
I finished 10 days and people going, well, what happens next? I was like,
oh no.
and somebody went, oh, I bet you I know the name of the one after 9 days.
And you're like,
yeah, 8 days.
Yes. Now I do too. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, but so the other things that writers kind of have to think about is, publishing, but did you ever write short stories, Nicole?
I did not, other than, like a few in college, but never to be published. I find it hard. I'm wordy. So I find it hard to keep things under like 5,000 words. Of course, then I'm not wordy enough, because then I'm at 25,000 on the current book, and I'm like, now what? Like, I gotta write more words. But yeah, I think, But then there are successful short story who just exclusively do short stories, and they're great at it. And it's. I think it's a different. I feel like writers, there's a lot of different pathways. Like, me and you are now on this mystery pathway, or there's the poets, but they all have different ways of getting published, I think.
Oh.
And
there's so many contests, especially for short stories. And I'm always envious when we go to these conferences and people go, oh yeah, I've written a short story and it's not anthology.
It's an Ellery Queen. Oh, great.
And I go, but it for me, it takes so, I have to focus pretty much on one thing at a time. Otherwise I get too scattered.
Same. No, that's me too. And I think we have an interesting story. I'm not sure how you found Panda Moon, but the way how I found Zara and Panda Moon is a Twitter contest, not a pitching Twitter event. I hate calling it a contest because there are no winners, no losers. you basically just had to pitch your book in 140 characters at the time, and editors, agents, publishers could like it and ask for more. And mine was Take Me Out to a Murder, Will Madeline Strike Out Trying to Find a Killer? And Zara, the leader, our fearless leader at Pandamoon, liked it. And then we ended up talking for 2 hours on the phone, and I, met the family and all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting because I had done the querying process where you send out your emails or letters to these agents and you're like, I want to be a writer and here's my book and it's great and I love it and blah, blah, blah. And you get, one line answers that, no, I don't like baseball, sorry. Or your voice is good, but I don't know. And so then you get discouraged. But I think the publishing world has opened a little bit more to be more accessible. Self-publishing is still a mystery to me. But Dale Phillips, I think Dale,
I don't think so.
Oh, you'll meet him at Crime Bake if you come this year. I'm assuming you're coming. He is my self-publishing guru. Like, he's self-published like 15 books. He knows the ins and outs, but you need that kind of person. Like, I don't think I could do it on my own. And that's why I'm kind of glad Pandamoon is there. I don't mind doing the marketing because I'm online pretty much 100% of my life anyway. But I think it really, and then you hear all the horror stories of the big five where they're not getting the marketing help. They're not getting in stores. They're not able to reach, do things like this, where you can just sit with a library and chitty chat and feel like you're connecting. So I'm kind of glad it's a smaller company and they do great work on the covers. Like, I can't get enough of the covers.
Yeah.
We'll show them again because they're great.
Yes, we'll show them again.
The cover, Dawn does a great job. So yeah, it's just what yours are going to be really cool as they go down in the numbers. I can't wait to see. Yeah. I can't wait to see what 3 is going to look like.
Yeah.
So
So Pandamoon is considered, a small publisher, and it's true what Nicole is saying is I do have some friends who are with what's termed the big five. And if you're a writer and want to write, and you go, oh, well, I need to have one of those people, those companies. It's really not true because, and I think that if you get a smaller publisher where you get a personal interaction, I have so many friends now who are with one of the big people who are just getting, their contracts aren't being renewed.
Right.
They're, and they have to start looking other places because right now it seems that what's very popular is, anybody who does something, crazy in the government or in the world or something like that, they get a book deal, and a lot of the energies at the big companies are now going into those kind of books. So I'm very happy to be with a small publisher.
Me too. I think it also helps for people like myself who really just wanted to write a book that I would want to read. So I want to read a baseball mystery. I want to read about a young woman who works for a baseball team. And I think it's an easier sell to a small publisher than to one of the big five. We're like, no, we only need cozy mysteries in bookshops or in tea rooms or in glass blowing, stores. So I think you can get into not into the whole market, but you can get yourself what you want to write, how you want to write it. And you don't get a lot of interference, even through the editing process. I mean, a lot of times it is literally just editing the language and moving stuff around, not the content. And I feel like I've read a lot of horror stories where, the big five's like, you should take that out because X, Y, Z. And it's like, I feel like we don't get as much of that on the smaller scale because they do allow you a little more freedom. So
yeah, and so your own voice comes through.
Right, exactly.
So basically, Nicole and I want to thank you guys for